The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, carrying a bright red past due stamp, $1,500. That was the balance demanded by a luxury Phoenix daycare for a child I do not even have. My stomach dropped, but the pieces snapped together instantly. Just the night before, I had canceled my emergency credit card to finally cut my sister off. When the plastic went dead, her secret auto pay bounced, and the daycare came hunting for the person on the contract. I flipped to the second page of the document, right there on the dotted line for the financial guarantor. My own signature stared back at me. The loops were slightly wrong. Digitally forged by my sister Megan and her husband Daniel. My jaw clenched tight enough to ache. They just crossed the line from toxic family drama straight into felony identity fraud. I folded the paper, slid it into a folder, and prepared to dismantle their lives. People assume you get blindsided by family betrayal. The truth is, they train you for it. As a high school dean of students, I spend my days breaking up cafeteria fights and untangling the lies of entitled parents. I have a zero tolerance policy for manipulation at work. Yet for 6 years, I let my own sister treat my bank account like a public utility. The daycare forgery was just the final insult on top of a mountain of financial abuse. They thought bleeding me dry was just how family worked. They didn't know every loan, every skipped bill, and every stolen charge was going into a master spreadsheet I was saving for this exact day. $45,000. That was the blood tax I had paid to keep their chaotic lives afloat. Maxed out credit cards for Megan's luxury baby year. Months of skipped rent for Daniel's apartment. Emergency bailouts because Daniel leased a massive truck he could not afford. They weaponized their own incompetence. They strategically performed helplessness, turning their financial chaos into a calculated chain around my neck, knowing I would step in to keep the children from suffering. I pulled out my phone, blocked both of their numbers, locked my social security file online, and sent one final emotionless email stating they were permanently cut off. The fallout was immediate. But it did not come from Megan or Daniel. It came from my parents. Lauren and Mark Hayes left 4 furious voicemails by Wednesday morning. My mother's voice trembled with rage, accusing me of abandoning my blood in the relentless Arizona heat. My father threatened to disown me if I did not fix this mess and apologize to my sister. I sat at my desk and listened to their panic, finally understanding the dark psychology of the enabler. My parents do not want family peace. They want to shift the burden if I stop paying. Lauren and Mark have to deal with Megan and Daniel themselves. They were sacrificing my future to buy their own comfort. I ignored their calls. I audited my credit report, found the fake email address Megan used for the digital forgery, and printed every single document. I refused to break my silence. I let them rage. Silence is the one thing a narcissist cannot survive. Enraged by the cutoff, Daniel's world began to collapse. His expensive lease truck was scheduled for repossession on Friday morning. Desperation makes arrogant men reckless. Knowing that my parents were obsessed with their local community image, Daniel calculated that a massive public scandal would force them to pressure me into paying him off just to make the embarrassment stop. Thursday evening, our high school was hosting a massive parent-teacher assembly. Over 300 people packed the auditorium. I was standing at the podium, delivering opening remarks, when the double doors at the back slammed open. Daniel marched down the center aisle. He held his phone high, actively live streaming to his social media. He screamed that I was an abusive Heartless aunt. He yelled that I was hoarding a government salary while leaving my nieces and nephews to starve. He wanted a reaction. He expected me to cower, cry, or run off the stage in shame. He forgot I handle bullies for a living. I did not raise my voice. I looked at the two school resource officers standing by the exits and gave a sharp nod. They locked the doors. Daniel kept screaming, marching closer to the stage, assuming the bureaucracy of the school would protect him. He was wrong. I used my administrative master fob to unlock the podium console. I plugged my preloaded district tablet directly into the hardwired presentation port. The massive projector screen behind me flashed white, then instantly displayed the forged daycare contract. Beside it, I threw up the spreadsheet detailing the $45,000 of stolen funds, complete with dates and transaction numbers. I leaned into the microphone. My voice echoed off the acoustic walls. Calm and perfectly steady, I dismantled his extortion attempt line by line, explaining the exact nature of the felony forgery to the silent, staring crowd of 300 parents. I did not mention his character. I only mentioned the evidence. The blood drained from Daniel's face. The murmurs in the crowd turned into sharp gasps of disgust. The resource officers closed in, grabbing Daniel by the arms. They slapped handcuffs on his wrists right there in the aisle, charging him with interference with an educational institution and criminal trespassing. He fought, he cursed, and he was dragged out of the building, his live stream capturing his own humiliating demise. For 2 weeks, the silence returned. Daniel bailed out of jail, and my family hid in their shame. I thought the boundary was finally set. Then, on a Tuesday morning, the school board and a Child Protective Services investigator pulled me out of my office. Someone had filed an anonymous, malicious report claiming I had physically abused my nieces and nephews. They wanted my educator license. They wanted my freedom. Panic is a waste of time. I walked straight to our district IT director. Daniel thought the internet made him invisible, but his arrogance was matched only by his cheapness. Because his phone data had been shut off for non-payment, he had filed the anonymous state report while sitting inside the auditorium during his ambush. His phone had automatically connected to the school's guest wireless network. One click. And the director handed me the network log matching the exact timestamp of the false report to Daniel's device. I handed that log directly to the detective. Filing a false abuse report is a felony in Arizona. Daniel was rearrested the next day, facing real prison time. The following afternoon, my mother showed up at my office. Her eyes were red. She begged for bail money, weeping that Megan was going to be homeless without her husband's income. I looked at the woman who had demanded I set myself on fire to keep her favorite daughter warm. I opened my desk drawer, pulled out a printed list of local homeless shelters, and slid it across the desk. I signaled campus security. They escorted my mother off the property. The enablers were finally left to drown in the mess they had created. Months later, I sat on my patio watching the Phoenix sun dip below the mountains. The air was cool. The neighborhood was completely quiet. And for the first time in my adult life, my phone was not buzzing with someone else's emergency. Daniel took a plea deal for the forgery and the false report, landing him in state prison. Megan moved into my parents' cramped guest room, forcing Lauren and Mark to finally bear the daily, exhausting reality of the daughter they had enabled. I filed the proper legal channels for the welfare of the children, ensuring the state monitored their living conditions. It broke my heart to step back from those kids. But you cannot save children by allowing their parents to destroy you. When you survive a family like mine, you learn that toxicity hides behind tradition. They groom the strongest, most capable child to carry the weight of the weakest, and they dare to call that extortion loyalty. I had to learn 3 brutal rules to get my life back. And if you are bleeding yourself dry for people who only call when they need a favor, you need to hear them. Rule number 1 is the myth of the village. Toxic people do not want a village to help raise their kids or build a life. They want hostages to fund their lifestyle. True help is requested with respect, never extorted through guilt. If someone expects you to sacrifice your stability for their convenience, they do not love you. They are using you. Rule number 2 is understanding the enabler's true motive. The parents or relatives who demand you keep the peace are not looking out for the family. They are protecting themselves. Enablers demand you apologize to the abuser solely because if you leave, the enabler becomes the abuser's next target. Their peace is purchased with your continued suffering. Do not accept the invoice. Rule number 3 is the absolute power of paperwork. Emotional manipulators thrive in chaos. They want screaming matches, crying fits, and vague arguments about the past because those things cannot be proven. They drown when you expose them to cold, hard facts, spreadsheets, network logs, and police reports do not have feelings. When you are pushed to the edge, stop arguing. Start documenting, have you ever been the responsible one? Slowly going bankrupt emotionally or financially to keep an entitled family member afloat. What is the real cost of your silence? Drop your story in the comments. Hit subscribe. And remember this, above all else, walking away from toxic blood isn't a crime. It is a rescue mission for your own soul. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there thinking, why on earth did she wait 6 years? Why did she let them drain $45,000 before finally cutting them off? I would have blocked them on day 1. It is easy to judge from the outside. But let's talk about the psychology of toxic family dynamic. Sarah was not stupid. She was trapped in something psychologists call the slot machine effect or intermittent reinforcement. When you are dealing with a manipulative family, they do not treat you terribly 100% of the time. Every once in a while, they give you a crumb of validation. They invite you to a dinner. They tell you you are a great aunt. They make you feel indispensable. You keep pulling the lever, hoping for the jackpot of real family love, but you are slowly going bankrupt in the process. Toxic families groom the most competent person to carry the heaviest load, and they disguise that financial abuse as loyalty. But once Sarah woke up, she executed a masterclass in financial self-defense. Let's break down the street smart moves she made that you can apply to your own life. First, the audit strategy. The moment Sarah realized she was being used, she didn't call her sister to scream. Scammers and manipulators love emotional arguments because emotions distract from the fact. Sarah immediately locked her social security number and audited her credit report. If you suspect a family member is taking advantage of you, freeze your credit. It costs nothing. It takes 5 minutes and acts as an impenetrable wall against identity fraud. Second, she mastered the art of building the case. Notice how Sarah didn't try to defend her character when Daniel ambushed her at the school assembly. She didn't yell, "I am a good person." Instead, she projected the forged contract and the spreadsheet of stolen funds. Latter, She didn't argue with Child Protective Services. She went straight to the IT department for the wireless network logs. Emotional manipulators drown in paperwork. If you are dealing with a toxic person, stop trying to win the argument. Start saving the receipts. Finally, she executed the buyout. Walking away from family often means mourning the relationship you wish you had. Sarah had to accept that her parents didn't actually want peace. They just wanted her to be the shock absorber for her sister's chaos. By handing her mother the list of homeless shelters, Sarah officially resigned from her unpaid job as the family savior. She invested in her own freedom. Blood does not make you family. Loyalty, respect, and reciprocity do. You are absolutely allowed to walk away from people who hurt you, even if you share a last name. Trust is earned, not owed. If you have ever had to fire a toxic family member from your life, I want to hear how you did it. Drop your survival strategies in the comments below. Subscribe for more breakdowns on how to protect your peace. And remember, your empathy is a gift. Stop giving it to people who treat it like a weakness. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there thinking, why on earth did Sarah wait 6 years? Why did she let them drain $45,000 before finally cutting them off? I would have blocked them on day one. It is incredibly easy to judge from the outside. But let us talk about the actual psychology of toxic family dynamics. Sarah was not stupid. She was trapped in a psychological cycle known as the slot machine effect, or intermittent reinforcement. When you are dealing with a manipulative family, they do not treat you terribly 100% of the time. Every once in a while, they give you a crumb of validation. They invite you to a family dinner. They tell you that you are a great aunt. They make you feel indispensable. You keep pulling the lever, hoping for the jackpot of real family love, but you are slowly going bankrupt in the process. Toxic families groom the most competent person to carry the heaviest load, and they disguise that financial abuse as loyalty. But once Sarah woke up, she executed a masterclass in financial self-defense. Let us break down the street smart moves she made that you can apply to your own life. First, the audit strategy. Scammers and manipulators hate detail. The moment Sarah realized she was being used, she did not call her sister to scream. Emotional arguments distract from the facts. Instead, she immediately locked her social security number and audited her credit report, which led her straight to the fake email address and the forged daycare contract. If you suspect a family member is taking advantage of you financially, freeze your credit. It costs nothing, takes 5 minutes, and acts as an impenetrable wall against identity fraud. Second, she mastered the art of building the case. Notice how Sarah did not try to defend her character when Daniel ambushed her at the school assembly. She did not yell to the crowd about being a good person. Instead, she projected the forged contract and the spreadsheet of stolen funds later. She did not argue with Child Protective Services. She went straight to the IT department for the wireless network logs. Emotional manipulators drown in paperwork. If you are dealing with a toxic person, stop trying to win the argument. Start saving the receipt. Finally, she executed the buyout. Walking away from family often means mourning the relationship you wish you had. Sarah had to accept that her parents did not actually want peace. They just wanted her to be the shock absorber for her sister's chaos. By handing her mother the printed list of homeless shelters instead of handing over bail money, Sarah officially resigned from her unpaid job as the family savior. She invested in her own freedom. A year later, the daycare sent me one final letter. This time, There was no red stamp, no threat, no balance due, just a formal notice confirming that my name had been permanently removed from every account, every emergency contact form, and every financial guarantor line connected to Megan and Daniel's children. I held that paper in my hands for a long time. It was only one page, printed in plain black ink, but it felt heavier than every bill I had ever paid for them. Heavier than the $45,000. Heavier than the voicemails, the guilt trips, the fake emergencies, and the years I spent believing that being useful was the same thing as being loved. For the first time, there was nothing left for them to attach to me. No card, no signature, no account, no obligation, just my name finally returned to me. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and opened the old spreadsheet one last time. Every stolen charge was still there. Every bailout, every late night transfer, every line item from the life I almost sacrificed to keep other people comfortable. I thought looking at it would make me angry. It did not. It made me proud. Because that spreadsheet was not just evidence of what they took. It was proof of what I survived. It was proof that I had finally stopped arguing with people who only understood consequences. It was proof that the responsible one does not have to remain the disposable one forever. My parents still tell relatives I destroyed the family. Megan still says I abandoned her children. Daniel still claims I ruined his life because I refused to keep paying for it. Let them. I used to think my reputation depended on explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. Now, I understand that peace begins when you stop auditioning for sympathy in front of an audience that benefits from your silence. The truth is simple. I did not destroy my family. I stopped being the foundation under a house that was already collapsing. And once I stepped away, everyone finally saw how rotten the structure had been all along. My life now is quiet in a way I never knew I needed. I go to work, handle real problems, come home, lock my door, and sleep without waiting for someone else's disaster to vibrate across my phone. I buy groceries without calculating whether Megan needs gas money. I answer emails without wondering if Daniel has opened another account in my name. I visit my nieces and nephews only through the legal channels that keep everyone safe. Because loving children does not mean surrendering yourself to the adults exploiting them. That was the hardest lesson. You can love someone and still refuse to be used as the rope in their parents' tug of war. You can care deeply and still walk away. You can be compassionate without becoming collateral damage. So if you are the person everyone calls when the rent is late, when the car breaks down, when the daycare bill bounces, when the consequences finally arrive, listen to me. Your rescue instinct is not proof that you are obligated. Your guilt is not a contract. Your empathy is not a bank account. And your family does not get to forge your name just because they know your heart. The day I canceled that card, I thought I was cutting them off. I was wrong. I was cutting myself free. And freedom did not arrive like a thunderstorm. It arrived quietly, in blocked numbers, in clean credit reports, in police records, in a silent phone, in a kitchen where every bill on the table finally belonged to me. That is what healing looks like sometimes. Not revenge, not rage, not a dramatic speech, just the peaceful sound of a life nobody else is allowed to drain anymore. So document everything, freeze what they can steal, protect what you have built. And when they call you cruel for refusing to keep bleeding, remember this: a boundary is not an attack. It is the door you close when you finally choose to survive. Blood does not make you family. Loyalty, respect, and reciprocity do. You are absolutely allowed to walk away from people who hurt you. Even if you share a last name, trust is earned, not owed. If you have ever had to fire a toxic family member from your life, I want to hear how you did it. Drop your survival strategies in the comments below. Subscribe for more breakdowns on how to protect your peace. And remember, your empathy is a gift. Stop giving it to people who treat it like a weakness.